There we go. Okay. And we have face. In 3. And 2. And 1. And yes, we have big face. Big, giant, fat face. I love it. We all need a face, right? Alright, hold on. Oh, jeez. Jeez. Alright. So, if you'll notice the light's a little weird and dim, and that's because, frankly, I've grown very distressed about having the ring light directly in my face, because after like 20 to 30 minutes of a bright ring light in your face, for me personally, I just get a lot of anxiety. So I've kind of tucked it up in the corner, so I get that it's kind of palish and darkish, but I can't deal with the sharp lighting. And this is for the setup for Friday Night Chat, which, hello, welcome to Monday Monads Friday Night Chat. My name is Jan Erickson, and this is where we discuss some things about Hyperianism and inner star actualization, but from a little bit more casual perspective and with room for more discussion and unpacking. So let me configure a couple of things. Let's see. Okay, that's fine. We're good. The face is good. The face is good, my friends. So, how is everybody doing? How's your week going? Anything exciting? Any amazing personal developments happening through the week? Who do we have in the house? Melinda Mayhem, hello! And we got Cassidy. And hello, forgive me if I murder your username. Is it PowGabby9? Thank you so much for coming. And Renaissance Fairy, always a pleasure to have you here. And Tina Timson, I always mess up your last name. I'm so sorry, honey. Hello, hello. Arwan, good to see you. Creating more on Instagram. That's good. Output is good. Katrina, hey. Katrina got a job. Congratulations, Katrina. Cheers to Katrina. And we have Loppy here, of course. We have Cynthia. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Cynthia says, hey, Jan, you look great. Thank you so much. I don't really get as dressed up sometimes. I go through phases. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like just putting on pajamas, and then sometimes I really feel like laying on the makeup. It depends. Lately, I've been feeling very minimalistic. But, yes, I've had to sort of push the lights away from my face more, just so I can, like, handle streaming better. And also, I'd like to bring up that allergy season is upon me, at least. I don't know about the rest of you. But in my specific area, there is a specific species of trees that gives off a particular pollen that comes off as a yellow dust, like everywhere. And I am so allergic to it. I am always miserable this time of year, so I have lots of nasal sprays, eye drops, allergy pills. So if I'm really like kind of coughing or like snorty, snuffling, or rubbing my eyes, that's why. And sometimes I have to excuse myself and go have a cough or a sneezing fit, or so 'tis the season for allergies. And yeah, my eyes get really sensitive because they're always itchy, and so that's why the light helps. I just realized I hadn't completed that circle. Why are we talking about lighting and allergies? Because my eyeballs are sensitive enough. My look balls have had it, and so the ring light is pointed up there, away from my face. But anyways, enough of that. Let's see, are the levels good? I don't want the music to be too loud, but I do like accompaniment, so let me know how it is on your end. Yellow snow, no. Yellow no is what this is. It's like greenish, yellowish, like pine dust. So it's like essentially tree sperm. Hello, Crystal Mason. Good to see you. So, how many of you watched the last Monday Monad episode? How many of you watched it? Because I had a moment where I talked about prayer. And oh my god. Before we get to that though, there's a couple of things I want to dive into. One of them actually is a creation by a Hyperian friend. If any of you are familiar with Jewel Marsh, Hyperion creator Jewel Marsh, part of the Hypermedia team, Jewel Marsh has put out some brand new music, and I actually want to take some time and listen to a main song from that. But I was supposed to do it during Lopuload, I just realized. But you know what? I think we're gonna do it actually at the end of our discussion. So if you guys want to stick around for a treat, we're gonna have like this miniature listening party for Jewel Marsh and his wonderful new project that came out, Ladder. And yes, Jewel Marsh goes by artist name 3 Eyes. So 3 Eyes, Jewel Marsh has put out a new album, Ladder. I believe it is released today, and we should all have a listen, and we will all do so at the end of the discussion. So it's a little bit of a treat, and I'm going to keep it in here. Is the music on YouTube? I don't know at the moment. An interesting story also. So I've set up the treat at the end of the live stream. We've got a lovely single from Jewel Marsh's project, Ladder. We're actually going to listen to the song Ladder. I love it a lot. So, but before we get into our discussion about prayer, because this is actually a continuation. Is Jewel here? Jewel, hello. We are going to have a tiny listening party to your song after our discussion. I hope you stick around, and I hope YouTube lets me. I don't know. Anyways. Good to see you, Jewel Marsh. I'm excited. I actually listened to the song earlier. It's so good. It freaking slaps, you guys. It's amazing. Oh, hey, Morg's in the house. Hello, Morg. Oh, hello, Eva Blue Rose. And Tyler. And Tina. Oh, we already said hello to Tina. Hello again, Tina. I love saying hello to you several times, everybody. Who cares? Once, twice, a million times. So yes, Jewel Marsh goes by artist name 3 Eyes. Released a project today called Ladder. Released an album today called Ladder. I'm really excited about that. There's another Hyperion. I don't want to give anything away because I don't think I'm supposed to share anything, but there's another Hyperion with something creative going on, and they're like, hey, look at this, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So there's some creativity going on. I don't know if it's like the weather warming up or spring coming on or what, but like we're all getting some energies happening, some creative energies happening. Which is wonderful, especially after a long shadow season, a long wintry season. So for everybody just getting in, don't worry. We are just kind of hanging out and waiting for you. And we are going to get into a discussion more about prayer, which is an extension of what I was talking about in my my last episode of Monday Monad, which was released just this Monday. And that kind of ruffled some feathers, and I knew it would. Like, seriously, the moment I thought of the title, Prayer is Poison, I did this, like, gasp, and then maniacal laughter, like, so, there's the allergies. Anyways, yeah, so the gasp, the maniacal laughter, and realizing what I would tackle with that. But, you know, I was excited about the kind of cleverness of the title. However, I'm very passionate about my chair squeaks. I'm very passionate about the topic, and that's why I kind of wanted to do a continuation this Friday for this Friday chat, because there was some comments and responses to what I put out during Monday, that I feel like I have to unpack this a bit more. And already I feel like maybe, just maybe, I'll get stuck in a situation where I'll continue to unpack this more in the future. And it's because prayer is something that is such a big part of everyday life, that is so socialized and like normalized and everything, that when you pipe up and say like, hey, gee, maybe that doesn't work like we think it does, and maybe it's not very useful like we think it is. And when you start to explore those thoughts and feelings, like, people get really like, no, but prayer is good. Prayer is, I said a prayer once and then I won a coupon for free peanut butter. Prayer works. Like, and what this kind of ends up going into, I feel like, is this branching out and this extreme splitting of hairs into examining a huge array of incidences and circumstances and situations and times where either prayer has worked or prayer hasn't, and what prayer is exactly in the eyes of who, And so it's really hard to avoid discussing more about prayer. Um, and I, I kind of, like, I knew I was opening a can of worms, but then as I started to see the comments come in, and then the comments and the arguments for prayer come in, I'm starting to remember a lot of the arguments on behalf of prayer that I used to get as a Mormon. I have even preached to other people at the time where I was religious myself. It's funny to get comments from people who think like I've never been religious ever. Like, excuse me, I've been a professional religious person for like 20 plus years. So yeah, I've had plenty of time with prayer. I've had plenty of time praying. I've had plenty of time arguing for and on behalf of the logic of prayer, and it working in certain ways, and you can't expect it instantly, and you have to do it delicately and things like that. And the arguments for prayer go on and on and on, and that's where it's like people sort of kind of lose themselves to it and come to an acceptance, because it gets so spread thin that it's like, okay, well, people just pray, so whatever. But then when you pipe up and say like, hey, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't do this, that for some reason is strange and bizarre and wrong. But yet the idea, and I mean more specifically prayers that are by like mainstream Christianity groups, claiming that prayer is very good for you. Now in my... Loppy, you're kind of too floppy. Loppy's upset. Alright. Too much magic and mysticism. Loppy does not like mysticism. So, in my last video, I put it out. Ooh, sorry. A little glitch there. Okay. So in my last video that I put out, I pretty much said, I verbatim said, prayer is poison. Prayer is poison. But it was within a specific context at the time when prayer is used as, I don't know, to me a weapon, at least at that part. But in situations where people are suffering from depression or other mental health issues, often the idea is thrown at you that you're simply not praying hard enough or correctly enough to receive the help that you desperately and vitally need at the moment. And I'm going to go over some kind of comments in light of this, and I feel like people kind of missed the point. Well, of course they did. That's why we're here discussing this. Hey, my face! More of my face. Double face. So, very good comments. A lot of people, left really good comments, like very supportive. It's really difficult to talk about the idea of prayer being something that is negative in a scene, in a world where it's so normalized, and it's like, this is a good thing. But there's so many aspects, so many negative, nasty aspects about prayer and faith that hush hush nobody wants to talk about, because it's just the ultimate, like, no, like, we can't assume that religious thinking or mystical thinking is incorrect or bad or even damaging for our psyche, like our brain, our everyday life, our moods, or, you know, everything can suffer from that. But there's a couple of comments. There was one in particular where I was like, okay, this is where I want to make a live stream about it and unpack it a little bit. And I didn't even like say anything or respond to it. And it's this person who says, and let me tell you, I've heard this so many times. So what this person is saying in response to me, pretty much saying, like, humanity needs to take prayer and just say no thank you. Absolutely. I personally think humanity needs to bag prayer. And, you know, I had some specifics in my video, and this person says that, first of all, prayer can't be answered at the moment you expect. It takes time depending on your faith and how patient you are. Lots of people didn't get their answers because they give up easily. And most people pray wanting God to heal and protect them, and then get their answers, and then they go back to normal without following Him. God knows your intentions for the prayer, and the prayer can be answered in different ways, not the way you expect it. If only you have patience and follow Him. Okay, they really kind of like jacked up the grammar on that one, but that's pretty much what that insinuates. And that to me was like verbatim what Mormonism told me and what I've even told other people. It's the weird area that I said where you start to have this prayer logic and it just branches and just spreads out, and you're splitting hair after hair after hair, and it's just so much. It's insanity. It's honestly, it's insanity. And who's looking at the center of it? What's the center of prayer? Well, in what I'm talking about specifically, we're talking about prayer to an entity, to a God, to something that you're not associated with, but you're like in this obligated contractual like relationship with, whether you like it or not, apparently. And that's just so bizarre to me. But if we sit down and question this, like, not being a very healthy dynamic or a very healthy relationship in any sense of it, like, suddenly that's strange. This is the kind of thinking that led me out of this toxic religious mentality. And that's what I was talking about, why prayer is poison in my last video, is because in moments of desperation, in moments where people are very much struggling with challenges in their life and mental diagnoses and things like that, and psychological issues, for somebody to say you're just not praying enough. And mind you, I got this idea to write about this when I saw from an Instagram account dedicated to educating people about depression, when they created a list of 10 things that you shouldn't say to people who are suffering and struggling with depression. The number one thing that a large amount of depressed people feel, that they surveyed and took in, a very large thing, and the number one thing that was mentioned is people telling depressed people that they're just not praying hard enough. And it was number one. That I'm just like, oh, that's it. I have to write about it. So that's what I did in my previous episode. And it's only like, I think like 11, 12 minutes long. It's not very long. It's just to the point. Like, you don't tell somebody who's struggling with depression that they're just not praying hard enough. And I also talk about Mormonism a lot because I grew up in Mormonism. Now, I did officially look up the stance of how Mormons look at depression, and they do acknowledge it as a serious issue and a psychological issue in some cases. But what's odd to me, and where I have to like blow the whistle at, is that they categorize spiritual despair and spiritual questioning and questioning God and the concept of God and everything like that. They lump that as like a depression symptom, like a symptom of depression. But we can't talk about that this is actually the cause of depression. And I don't mean depression as a whole for everybody, but I mean in some cases, and especially in some cases of religious trauma syndrome, we can't talk about religion, toxic religion, being the source of the depression, because you're creating this foundation of a narrative for your whole entire existence and your whole entire life, that this being made you. Okay, they made you. You did not exist until them, and now you owe them. You owe them your love. I don't care how you look at it. And it's just an insanely toxic relationship where this being gives you this sort of free range to do what you want, but if you do some certain things, even if you enjoy them and they're not hurting anybody else, you're not going to get back into Sky Daddy's house. And it starts to bring in the idea of, an extended, because most people want to know what happens to them after they die, and a lot of this mainstream Christianity puts forth the idea of an afterlife. Well, all of this life is like it's a test, it's a this, it's a that, it's this playground for us, for God to see if we're devout to Him or not, or we love Him or not, enough or not. And it's sickening, and prayer is part of that. Prayer is part of that. So already, like within this, it's like condoning that we should have this weird toxic relationship with this entity that may or may not be hearing you, may or may not be answering your prayer. And if they do, we don't know quite how it's gonna be. Even if you make your answers yourself, it's still them. Like, what? This is just... I mean, just think about applying it to a person, like an everyday person. Like, I love thinking about it in my life, like, for my work ethic. Like, if I get shit done, then, it's a miracle. And if I don't do anything at all and I sit around, I'm just working in mysterious ways. Now, I want to be clear, because I know a lot of people here are Hyperian, and some aren't. Hyperianism does not, Hyperians, there's no external creator God. There's no God that's creating us as spirits, and then we're eternal. That's already a fallacy. Like, you can't begin eternity. Eternal is eternal. It just, infinity is infinity. It doesn't begin, it doesn't end. And there's much more simple things, rational proofs of there not being a God at all. Sorry, I have an itchy eye. So it's weird to see people, when you finally understand these rational proofs of there not being an external creator God, because there can't be an external substance from us if we're made out of some shit and God's made out of shit. Like, how does that shit interact? Like, it doesn't. Like, it's separate. But everything is unified. Everything's from the same thing. We're all from the same source. Every freaking thing, like, we're experiencing, seeing, like, all the qualia, all of our bodies, all of our lifetimes, like, this is all source. This is all, like, from one thing. You can't have two things. Now, that's just to unpack rationalizing there not being a God a bit. We can dive deeper into that later. I would love to. But I want to get back to prayer, because you have that in mind, and prayer's like what's the point of prayer? And for people who are like, well, prayer's good, and prayer, when I prayed, this happened, and when I prayed, I saw this light in the sky, and the heavens opened, and the angels sang, and as monads, as I said, because, like, we're monads, right? That's why we're Monday Monad. That's why I'm so passionate about monads. It's because we're monads. We're eternal beings. Monads is what I say, just to help people understand it very simply. Like, monad is a fancy word for soul. Only it's a more correct mathematical term. Monads. We are eternal. We are eternal souls. We are eternal monads. We were never born, and we will never die. We will never cease to exist. We are eternal, perpetuating wheels, baby. Eternally perpetuating motion. And so we have to, long story short, here we are. In reality, right? This physical world, we like to call it the holos. Holos. We monads, eternal monads, are experiencing this reality through these bodies, these physical vessels. And these physical vessels, they have the brains in which we're operating. It's like your control room. It's like your bridge, like the captain's bridge, like the bridge of your starship. You're exploring the holos in your body, your brain, and your brain, unfortunately, whereas you are lovely and infinite and just full of light. You are light, you are reason, you are everything. Your brain is not great at encompassing everything. They just aren't. Gotta love brains. I mean, they got us here this far, and we're gonna continue to ride them, but they're filters. They're filtering our experience as, like, infinite, like, timeless beings into, like, these sort of mortal human experiences. But we're still eternal. Like, we're still connected to everything. So let's say I see a comment up here earlier mentioning that how prayer is good and we should keep prayer because our ancestors prayed, and so we should keep doing that, because without some people's moment of prayer, in cases where it's good, where somebody prayed and they saw like the light and the angels singing and the heavens opening, and they have the visions and the things and that. I think people are missing the part where you have to go back around and think that, oh, our brains are a filter and we're experiencing this reality through our brains. And there is some weirdness with our brains. Some of us have very, I don't want to say old brains as in old age, but old as in like older models of brains that have less capacity to understand some things as we do now. So for a lot of these people, when they have these crazy, outrageous, like religious experiences where they're like, yes, prayer works, I believe, I prayed and then I won a free case of cola. You know, it's, their brain is taking a part of themselves, like their subconscious, let's say, but on a more serious note, for somebody who's praying genuinely to know what the right decision is, or what the right thing is to do in their life, or if they're presented with a choice, you know, they're gonna want to know, like, what should I do? Should I take on this career, or should I move to this other place and accept this other job? Things like that on a more serious note. Or maybe praying about things about medical decisions, or praying about something even more crazy and dark in despair, depression and despairing moments, like, you know, do I want to unalive myself or not? You know, very serious things like that. Who have experiences where, you know, it brings them up out of it. It's like in their minds, in their brains, they're experiencing this as a separate entity or something separate from them, because it's just, there's such a disconnect between them on the front and their like subconscious. So, you know, it's just a lower self-awareness, and some people have a much higher self-awareness. And going back to when I was discussing Loppy and how Loppy is a revolutionary unicorn, and our Loppy lumps are, you know, they're, I'm reading my little card. Leave me alone. I need notes. So my little Loppy lumps are little reminders that we are part of the mental revolution. And I was saying that a big part of the mental revolution is that it's elevating consciousness. It's evolving consciousness. And there's a lot of between area when you evolve into depending mentally and emotionally on an idea of an external entity from you, and then you look at that and you're like, no, that's something else, kind of like a mirage, like that is no, that's not Jesus, that's not God, that's me. You know, you take a closer, I need to stop saying, you know, sorry. You know what I'm saying? You need to count. You taking a know what I'm saying, sis? Stop counting. Anyways. So, a lot of Hyperianism, and the part where I'm just like really kind of obsessed in Hyperianism is sort of the psychological aspect, and the part that helps me get out of the rut of and the damage from religion is that those little in between parts, they're not little, they're huge. It's just the thinky brain parts. It's the mental exercise. It's actually like picking up mentally the weight and working the muscle, and it's hard and it's really difficult because at least for me, because I grew up with a very programmed religious brain to think like, oh, prayer works. You just have to do it this way. And if it doesn't work that way, then you should have done it this way. And if it didn't work that way, then you should have done it this way. And the hairs get split and split and split and split and so much. And then when you finally rationally understand the rational proof that there is no external creator God from us, prayer becomes a whole different ballgame. Prayer is no longer necessary. I think it's poison. And I think in the sense too, it really undersells humanity when we constantly promote the idea that prayer is good, even if we understand rationally that there's no external creator God. It's like, well, our ancestors prayed and that's how we got here. Like, yeah, and our ancestors also like fucking shit in their hands, like wipe their hands with their own, like wipe their ass with their bare hands. Like, should we keep doing that? Like, so I hate that argument. And it was like right here. We got this Brett Reno who says, first of all, they say, I think the title should be Prayer is Poison to Me, as in me. And they say, I know people and have heard tons of stories, and I myself have been helped greatly by prayer and meditation. Okay, I never mentioned meditation. That's a whole different thing. And Brett says, I understand it may not work for you, but it may for some. Love you. I hate the love you at the end. Love you too, I guess. I don't know. Is that like, it's like sealing it with a kiss and a spritz of perfume. So I responded with, my title choice is just fine. It perfectly represents prayer and how this kind of thinking is actually holding humanity back as a whole. And honestly, it is holding humanity back as a whole. Not everybody's prayer is same, and it's just all subjective, and it's all over the place. And one person's prayer answered goes against another person's prayer answered, and it's messy. No. We gotta stop. We need to reframe it. And if there's good positive parts, which there is out of prayer, we need to take that out, reframe it, redefine it, and do something better with it and evolve it. So, I told them it's holding humanity back as a whole. And they said, what about how far it's brought us as a whole? Someone in your ancestry was religious and used that faith and prayer to get through some situation that allowed you to be here today. Prayer is why you're alive. And to that I say nonsense that is grossly overstated and a complete appeal to mysticism, and it is. To state very boldly, prayer is why you're alive is a gross overstatement for prayer and an extreme underselling for humanity. It completely takes the power out of... Ooh, my horns are getting knocked around. Ooh, we're triggered. Okay. It completely undersells humanity. It depresses humanity. It puts humanity in this position of it constantly needing to be needy and dependent on this external figure that doesn't exist, okay? And for what? Oh, because it got us here today? Well, like I said before, we used to wipe our fucking asses with our bare hands. Should we keep doing that now? It's ridiculous. And then they responded with, your grandmother wasn't religious? Well, of course they were. Of course we had ancestors that were religious. That's completely besides the point. And that's where I had to take the moment to set this all up. Because I feel like this idea, and I don't want to get after Brett. I don't know them. I don't know this person. I don't even know if that's their real name. I'm after these ideas, not the person. I don't care about them. It's this idea that prayer's been a part of humanity and it's gotten us this far. Has it? Has prayer gotten us this far? Because yes, somebody back then has had the experience with the brain and the filter that they had at the time to have those experiences, to understand themselves, that their brain allowed, okay? I don't know if you're following me with that. But humanity is evolving. We're evolving. Our minds are evolving. Our ability to think is evolving. Everything is evolving. It's a teleological happening. It's happening, honeys. It's happening. The teleological end is happening. The final cause is happening, where everything unifies and syncs up. And the more we all start to understand that the thing we're praying to is not something separate, you know, we need to reframe prayer and start trusting ourselves, start building trust in ourselves to problem solve. And to build our problem solving skills. There's my other window. There we go. So that's where I kind of like felt like I had to unpack a lot of these things before. And then this person here, you know, who says you have to have your prayer answered in a certain way, you know. You know, they say that lots of people didn't get their answers because they give up easily. That was something that I struck on my last episode that I felt like was evil of religion, and that causes depression. When you set up this narrative of worthiness with this creature, this entity that doesn't exist. Am I worthy? Can I get validation from this entity that doesn't exist? That is a losing battle and a lost cause. We should be developing relationships with ourselves. So that kind of got to me, that sentence that says lots of people didn't get their answers because they give up easily. That's such an underselling to humanity as well, to humans and their ability to grow. Give up easily? No, if something isn't working, you shouldn't keep doing it. It's literal insanity to keep trying something, doing things the same way and expecting different results. And I think some of us are just have the development where we can't fathom living life being dependent on those kind of entities. This God entity. I mean, this is just, it illustrates my point in my last videos. I am literally talking about people who have the audacity to tell somebody who is struggling with depression that they aren't praying enough or doing it right. You know, it's a terrible thing to preach. And I know this because, as I said before, I have been a professional religious person for 20 plus years. I have blindly spit out this garbage to others, you know, when they needed solutions to their problems or confidence built up in them, not to just have information that they're not doing enough. I guess that's just where my emotion comes in for this right now. It's because I've been through this before, and I want to protect others from going through the same thing. I've been through the extreme fields, the grassy fields of prayer logic. It's really easy to get lost in that. I think prayer is definitely a cause of depressive cycles. Anyways, settling down a little bit, shall we say hello? I think I kind of went on a tangent. I hope you all followed along with me. Good Lord. Was that good? Yeah, great rant. Thank you. Thank you, Eva. Great rant on prayer. On the frivolity of prayer. The idea that humanity has relied on prayer for so long and so therefore we should keep doing it is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. There's so many other things that we have done so far that we don't need to and this is where I think this is mainstream religion harms humanity as a whole. It keeps us depressed as a whole, and it's religious trauma on a collective level. The religious questioning and turmoil begins with the question of worthiness. This idea of God, being obsessed with its members, proving their worthiness to Him. That's where it plants the seed in your head that if you don't do things in a specific way and pray a specific way and have a perfect set of elements and factors, then you're fucking up. And that's why you haven't received incredibly vital help that you need in the moment. When you pray really hard that you need help in life, you don't receive the vital help. We can't even help each other as a collective because we are more content with sitting and chanting than we are actually putting a plan of action together and developing our problem-solving skills. When somebody is desperately asking for help, when they are suffering from depression, things like that, when the whole collective, when humanity is crying out and asking for help, when the majority of the collective is crying out and only like 1% is not giving a crap, you see where I'm going here. It's time to wake up and set everybody up so that we can all support each other through all this, because there's so many more things, bigger fish to fry in the world as a humanity, as a human race. We don't need to pile more pressure on people who need help with this idea that they need to appeal to a certain entity in a certain way to get the help that they need. And even if they end up helping themselves, then what's the point of the God to begin with? It kind of goes back to Epicurean stuff. I think it was Epicurus who had the spiel about God being helpful, and if he's not helpful, then why call him God, or something like that. And especially we've got rational proof that God doesn't exist. This is preschool stuff in Hyperianism. And this, I always talk with people say, well, if it doesn't exist, why do you talk about it? Because it's a mainstream idea, and it's like in the collective consciousness, pulsating in there like a little worm, wiggling around, squiggling around ideas and holding humanity back. It's a parasite. This God figure is abusive. God is abusive. God is neglectful, and especially when they need him the most. And when they're able to help themselves, then God isn't useful at all. It's a collectively fed fantasy of a father figure that we have to appeal to in certain ways in order to obtain the highest degrees of heaven in the afterlife or in the eternal afterlife. And this is exhausting. There is nothing in this relationship setup that's where we have anything given back to us. It's a one-way street. I broke up with that a few years ago. I'm done. Sorry, God, I'm breaking up with you. We're done. Now my daddy. Sorry. It's like even in the very basis of like Adam and Eve, the whole story is based on a plan that is meant to fail. It's just a very unhealthy relationship between God and humans, and people want to keep praying to God in humanity for what? What about the part where we can drop that, recognize ourselves as God? We are God as a whole, and as a whole of humanity, we can actually work individually and collectively to start making this world better, to evolve, develop a better awareness of ourselves, our minds, our subconscious, explore the world, and do what we're meant to do as monads. And it doesn't mean life's going to be perfect and easy. It just means we're going to have new challenges in a different way. I just don't think we should be depressed like this with this stupid prayer shit. Anyways, I think I've said enough. Don't pray. Take a look at yourself today and think maybe you are the one to solve your own problems. Don't pray. Take a look at yourself today. So come on and be the one to solve your own problems, 'cause you are the one, not this fucking God. I saw a weird comment somewhere too about somebody saying something about Gnostics or occultism or something like, well, they said prayer is useful too. It's like, no, that's all antiquated stuff. Like, Hyperianism is the new thing. I think prayer is out, and I think rational manifestation is in. Rational manifestation meaning, like, you formulate a plan, you envision your idea, and you put in rational, reasonable, executable steps and just like put all that into action and accomplish your goals. You know? We can all accomplish a dream, but some dreams suck and you gotta bag it. So, is everyone still here? Jewel, stay here. Jewel is still here. I want to listen to Jewel's song. Let's listen to Jewel's song. Jewel released a album today called Ladder. We're gonna listen to the song Ladder. We're gonna do it. Let's see. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. Oh, March 11th. I thought it dropped today. I'm sorry, Jewel. I just saw like the 11th and I'm like, it's today. Okay, so psych. I lied. Correction. This actually drops on March 11th, which is that next month? Oh my god, my birthday is next month. Oh, another round around the sun. Jeez. Anyways, I stand corrected because I'm just so excited. Okay, we're gonna get Jewel's new album on March 11th. And we get to listen to Jewel's song right now. This is an exclusive preview, so this is pretty, this isn't advertised or anything. So if you're here, you're here. And if you're not, it's gone, baby. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me today and this discussion of prayer and unpacking some of the logic. And let's close out with the lovely new song by Hyperion creator Jewel Marsh, known as 3 Eyes, and the new upcoming album Ladder. Let's listen to the song Ladder. get it queued up.